So, welcome everybody. Thanks for coming, and thanks to Jill and Aaron for providing this opportunity and doing the Zoom setup. Um, and yes, I'm very happy that you're all here. And since you've recently started school, and I think most people have recently started using Becoming Rhetorical, I thought I would just kind of first of all, give some deeper background to what what I was thinking when I wrote the book, like what I see as kind of the main contribution, and then talking about how it might relate to the Clark College curriculum. So Jill and I are, yeah, Jill, I was about to call you Julia, Jill. See too many Vanesses
No, it's
around.
my daughter. Sorry.
um, yeah, Jill and I talked last week about what the focus of the program as being teaching for transfer, and yeah, so I kind of and we talk so basically I want to talk about that and talk about my general approach to designing assignment sequences. And I also want to use this as an opportunity to do some kind of collaborative work on thinking about how we might also do some assignment sequencing for your upcoming projects. So, with that said, I am going to share my screen. I made a PowerPoint, of course. All right, now I feel like I'm teaching. I don't know about most of you, but we're supposed to be doing high flex teaching this semester. And I decided that, in fact, I did not want to do high flex teaching because it seemed crazy. So I'm doing it all on Zoom, and it's actually turned out to be quite a lovely experience. So, yes, I am familiar with sharing PowerPoints on Zoom, although that doesn't mean I still can't I have to work on operating the controls here. Let's see. Okay, there we go. Okay, so let me, sorry, I've lost all of my screen. I can't see any of you. So if you have questions or if you want me to stop, please just unmute and talk. This can be very informal. So I started thinking about writing Becoming Rhetorical in, I think it must have been 2011 or 2012 when I was the director of composition here at the University of Idaho. And I wrote it in response to a couple different things. First of all, I was, just most practically, I was having trouble finding, I was using less and less of the textbook that we were using, and I kept finding like myself picking and choosing and putting it together weirdly. And finally, I'm like, you know what, this just isn't working. And the thing that I was mostly having trouble with is that nobody that the view of rhetoric that people tended to have in textbooks was not very robust. And there also wasn't a whole lot at that time, at least, that dealt with visual and multimodal rhetoric very robustly. So I was like, fine, I'll just write my own book, which turned out to be quite a long project. Writing a textbook, it turns out, isn't just a matter of like, well, I teach this way. It was pretty involved. So I want to talk a little bit about, let me just, I hope I didn't just screw up the screen. I have my notes on another page here. This is the heart of the book. Obviously, this is the book's title. But this is the quote that it came from. And this article struck me when I read it. And I found myself coming back to it and thinking about it a fair bit when I was designing my own courses and when I was designing English 101 and 102. We have the TAs here are primarily who teaches our 101 and 102 courses. So this kept coming up. And So I will just go ahead. It's a long quote, so I'll go ahead and read it. So the goal of rhetorical training is neither a material product nor a body of knowledge, nor technical proficiency in achieving predetermined ends. It is rather to become a certain kind of person, one who has internalized the art of rhetoric and who possesses what Quintilian called facilitas, the capacity to produce appropriate and effective language, and I'm going to say communication, in any situation. The aim of rhetorical study, in other words, is character. The facilitas of rhetoric is resident in the educated person who doesn't so much learn rhetoric as becomes rhetorical. So I love this quote because, first of all, it points to the fact that rhetoric is not just kind of a set of texts that you study or memorize. I mean, of course, there is a set of texts involved, but rather I think of it really as a robust conceptual toolbox for transferability of knowledge. So when I teach students rhetoric, I mean, and you know, the Greeks had the notion of paideia, which means kind of cradle to grave rhetorical education and training. So, obviously they're not talking about a 16-week semester, but, do you guys do semesters or quarters?
Quarters.
Quarters, okay, or however long your quarter is. So this is a very, lifelong education, basically. But regardless, it has a set of tools, and that's what I think of it as. And, we might only get to a couple tools in the course, but ultimately, and here are some of the tools, and you might recognize this if you've gotten to chapter 2 yet. This isn't really even a situation anymore. It's more akin to what various rhetoricians or rhetorical theorists have called the rhetorical ecology, which makes it seem more like a moving and systemic sort of thing, more so than a situation. But regardless, people know the rhetorical situation, so that's what I go with. So, but things like audience and purpose and genre and medium and means of circulation. So all of these things apply in every communication situation. And so ultimately, like in terms of transferability, what I want students to be able to do is compose for rhetorical situations that haven't even been invented yet. So for audiences who aren't there yet, for purposes that don't exist, for technologies and media that aren't there. So in any situation throughout their lives, I want them to be able to recognize, like, oh, here are the set of, I don't know the situation, I'm unfamiliar, but some sort of communication is happening or has to happen. And so I have this set of tools that I can use to start asking questions, to start doing the invention work for composing. So this is the overarching goal of the book. And though, like, I like my sections on visual rhetoric and multimodal rhetoric. Those are only examples. The questions, I think, are the most important things, the heuristic parts of that. So in terms of transferability, I think that's really the main goal of the book. And so, that's philosophically, I think the, main intervention of the book. But practically speaking, which I think is what we all like, when I go to design, well, whether it's a whole course or an assignment, I realized that I have 4 steps, and I didn't have these quite broken down into 4 steps until I talked to Jill. And Jill, I don't even remember where this came from. The absorb, analyze, create.
It's from one of our faculty. Kim Miller was the one who came up with this, for her course this term. Joe and Julia and Josh have seen this. Yeah, one of our faculty.
I really like it. I was like, yeah, that's what I'm doing. Because I always, I think of analyze, produce, but I like absorb, analyze, create, reflect. This kind of four parts that go with that it's a process for kind of the large and small scale of the classroom. So, absorbing, like I think uh, where I see students fall down is when they haven't thought enough about the thing, especially when you assign, like I do everything I can to like stall students from the research project, the traditional English 102 or 101 or 102 English or research paper or research papers in other classes. Like I do everything I can to stop them from jumping into that. And so we spend a lot of time at the absorb stage. So this is, I don't know if what parts of becoming rhetorical you're using yet, but there's an assignment in, I think, chapter 6 called the Rhetorical Scrapbook. And basically, I just want them to start digesting something that they're interested in, something that struck their attention, and I want them to process it. I want them to kind of increase their their mental resources for thinking about it, so that they don't like immediately leap, like they panic, they leap to some opinion about something, and they're like, okay, now I got to like find research that supports my opinion, so that like all thought start like gets canceled. Then there's no more thinking. It's just like, okay, I'm doing this assignment and I need to hunt and peck for sources that support what I'm saying. It's the most boring, dead prose you can possibly imagine. So, getting them to slow down, getting them to do some reverse engineering, and this is the analysis part. So anytime I do any sort of assignment, we always do analysis first of the type of thing that I'm asking them to do. And I'm a very pragmatic person. I admire people who invent these really interesting assignment prompts, but I'm usually like, here's a genre, let's work on this. And because I like things that are already there, and I like to take them apart and see like, what are the, what has animated this thing? What are the, I think everything rhetorically. So what are the rhetorical concepts that are inherent in here, and how can we understand it? But then I don't want to stop there, because it used to be when I first started teaching, I really just liked analysis, because I'm like, yeah, let's do more analysis assignments. And I think analysis or assignments are great, but as I kind of went on with my teaching career, I started, I'm like, but we have to make stuff. We have to intervene. And it might have been a product of when I was in grad school, like in the 90s, early 2000s, and that's when critical pedagogy was very big, and critical theory. And then there started to be kind of a shift away from that, where, you don't just analyze and criticize, you make interventions. And so I want to teach students to be able to do that, to really, participate as citizens, as active members of a community. So create has been an important part of the thing. And then of course, reflect is an important aspect. And I know you have all been talking about this a lot, and you probably have a more robust understanding of it than I do. So we can talk about that later. But always getting students to understand what it is that they've just done, what they know now or what they know differently, and even just like what they learned, what they had problems with, is an important aspect of any kind of learning experience, whether it's an assignment or a whole course or whatever. So, okay, so well, I'll hold for questions. I wanted to basically just walk through an example of an assignment that I am doing this semester for my English 309. So this is not a 100 level course, but the students, so they're slightly more sophisticated, but we're still dealing with a lot of 100 level stuff. And I think something like this could be adapted for a 100 level course. So it is, I'll drop this in the chat if anybody finds it easier to kind of follow along on their own screen. There we go. Okay, so this is a link to an assignment sheet that, or an assignment sequence that I'm doing this semester. So I've started thinking of all assignments as sequences. I very rarely have something that is a standalone, like here, we're just going to do this thing. And part of this is it's hard to get this, absorb, analyze, create, reflect process into one little nugget. So, and when Jill and I were talking, we decided that this would be a good thing to talk about. So this assignment is everything I do is partly stolen, by the way, so I'm not claiming originality for a single thing. This is partly stolen and modified from Jodie Nicotra's book on multimodal rhetoric, the name of which is escaping me right now. But the assignment is called Genre Challenges, and I think that is the name of a similar assignment that she has as well. And so it has 3 parts, and this was our first unit. So it took about a month. So first, I should back up and say this course is called Rhetorical Style. Nobody really knows what that means, but basically, the gist of the course, the point of it, is to get students to understand style as more than just an expression of personality, but as something that is deeply enmeshed with things like audience, purpose, genre. And for the most part, students had not really they didn't really understand genre as at least the way rhetorical theorists are talking about it. So, they had heard of certain genres within movies and, the main literary genres, but we were using it in a much more kind of robust way as just a genre, like I describe it in the textbook, as kind of a stabilized form of communication. So let me see if I can get here. All right. I see my Firefox is here. There we go. Okay. Here we go. So here's the whole assignment. So what I wanted to do was first the absorbing part of it, and which bled into analysis, is understanding what genres are and kind of dwelling with a specific genre. So we started by I had them do a reading. It's a good open source reading called Navigating Genre. And just to get a sense that genre is more than what they understood it as. Then we, as a class, we brainstormed genres. We just kind of kept a Google Doc and everybody would type, and we, broke genres down by category. And I always use obituaries. I don't know why, because I guess I read the local paper every day, and I always read the obituary. So, and I'm sort of morbid, so I guess that's where that comes from. But, we used obituaries as an example of a genre, and I kind of took them through all of these questions here for their stylistic analysis. So the origin of the genre, kind of the context or the settings, the participants, the audience, and who reads it, and what circumstances they read it, what purposes it fulfills, the conventional stylistic features, and then to help them get started, how they could potentially parody the genre. So we worked a lot on that, and by the time and we did this piece by piece. So I really wanted them to have a good handle on, understanding the rhetorical dimensions of a genre before we then went on to both reproduce it and then mess with it. So they then did a reproduction. So if they were doing, they did everything from travel blogs, which we'll look at an example, a student example in a second, to greeting cards, to graduation announcements, horoscopes. They came up with all sorts of interesting genres to focus on, and they did a good job with it too. So they had to do a reproduction, whatever it was. Oh, somebody did YouTube apology videos, which was pretty funny. So yeah, so I just wanted them to then, okay, you have seen how other people have done these rhetorical moves with the genre. Now you do them. And this was kind of just a straightforward version, just so that they could more deeply absorb those rhetorical moves by doing it themselves, because it's sometimes easy to point to other people doing things and not so easy to do the thing yourself. All right, and then just to make sure it was, all the way in their bones, I had them do a parody or a spoof of that genre. So, and the reason behind this is, like, you really need to understand how something is working in order to make fun of it, because parody is usually just an exaggeration with a twist of a thing. So, they really had to know the stylistic features of the genre and the conventions and where it could possibly fall down. So, for instance, if somebody were to parody advice columns, you'd have to understand that sometimes first of all, why are random people or why are they writing to this? Don't they have any friends? Like, why are they writing to this person who really is no more qualified to answer questions than I am? Also, the answers sometimes, they're very specific kind of to the person, and sometimes they're not good answers. So you can make fun of that part of it, but you have to recognize all of this stuff that's going on. So, and then finally for this, which they presented in the format of a memo, they were to include a self-evaluation and reflection. So this is, and again, I'm not great about reflections. I'm just like, what did you learn? What do you think you did well? What did you have a hard time with? What were your biggest challenges? Although I should say, I have this level of reflection on the assignment itself, like right after they've done it. But then I'm using a labor-based grading contract, which I don't know if you know what those are, if you're using those, but they just get credit for doing the work, but then if they want to get an A, they have to revise, like do a substantial revision of all their projects for their final portfolio, which involves another whole level of reflection. So yeah, so I like kind of mini reflections and then big reflections at the end. But mostly I think even more than, like, I think reflection is really helpful, but even more so is looking at the thing in multiple ways and using it in multiple ways. So, all right, so I'll pause here. I have a couple of student examples if you want to see them, just kind of what they look like. But does anyone have any questions so far about, anything I said? You can feel free to unmute, or you can post it in the chat if you like. I see people have posted stuff in the chat and I haven't been paying attention. Okay. Any questions. All right, well, let me, I will show you one more
Jodie, I'll ask
thing.
you something really quick.
Yeah.
In your assignment sequence, let's say this is English 101, or in this case it's 309, how many of your assignments or prompts actually have these, especially I'm intrigued by 3 dimensions. I think we have been in a place of sort of modes kind of thinking that the narrative, the comparison, we haven't done modes for a long time, but we're accustomed to a one-dimensional kind of assignment. And even, moving to a 2 and 3 is really fascinating. I think it could, really inform us as a group about where we could go and how playful these things really could be. So what does your sequence look like in terms of how many of these kind of multi-dimensional assignments are there?
Yes, well, okay, so we finished this, as our second unit. We're doing a stylistic, so we're focusing on the literary essay
Mhm.
as kind of our object, and they have to do, after we've used this book, which is great if you ever get a chance. It's not good for 100 level students, but I think it's useful just to read as a teacher. Oh, sorry, it's called Performing Prose. I don't know if anyone's seen it before, but we're doing. So we've read that, which talks a lot about style as rhetorical, and then they are applying those concepts to an essay that they're choosing from this book, which is Best American Essays. And so they're doing kind of a deep stylistic analysis, and then they're going to do an imitative essay. So using using the essay they analyzed, but a topic of their choice. So it's the same sort of thing, like absorb, analyze, create. And then, I'll have a reflection on that as well. And then for the third assignment for the class, same sort of thing, but we're going back to genre. Like in this, I actually just want them to I want to give them a chance to absorb whatever's been happening this year, which is a lot, so much. So so they're doing either, I think, a eulogy, an open letter, or maybe a commencement speech. So we're going back to the idea of genre, but we're absorbing 2020. We're analyzing whatever genre they choose to write in, and then they're doing an assignment on that. So so it kind of works across the whole course as well as within individual assignments, with the hope that that will really cement their understanding of genre. Like now that they've had a chance to think about style and think about how genres work, now they're going back and they're going to write something totally new in a genre that they probably aren't familiar with. And I'm hoping that will clinch the knowledge that they've gained. And I keep saying, I just hope from 5 years from now, here's what I want you to remember. And sometimes it's just the idea that there is something called style, and it's not just an expression of somebody's personality.
I'm sorry, would you mind repeating that list? It was eulogy, graduation speech.
Yeah, or open letter.
Thank you.
Yeah. And I might come up with some more. I have not written this assignment sheet yet. This is just I'm like, oh, that's so far off. But that's what I'm thinking, some sort of commemorative thing. So yeah, but I find it's really helpful because it gives them a chance to really think about the thing and create a new mental model basically before they then produce. Yeah, I've found it has led to better projects. So, okay, I'm going to switch one more time here. And sorry, crowdfunder. Brogan, that's a great idea.
There's actually a story by Carmen Maria Machado. This is how I got the idea. It was anthologized in Best American Science Fiction of, I think it was the first one that ever came out, actually, 2015. And she wrote this amazing knock your pants off story called Help Me Follow My Sister into the Land of the Dead that was styled as a crowdfunder.
Oh, I
It was
love
one of
it.
the most popular stories in my creative fiction class when I first started teaching it. And so I started working it into rhetoric classes too. It's
I
fun.
am stealing that if you don't mind.
Of course.
That's great. And plus it's a, something that they're probably all familiar with, um, more so than like open letters. um, okay. So quickly, um, here we go. Sorry, I'm not quite as adept here as I want to be. Let me see if I can pull this up. Here we go. Okay, so I'm sharing an example of student work just so you can kind of see what they did with it. So this student has used digital nomad blogs, and this is, I should also say, this is an older student. It's pretty sophisticated, so was picked up on the idea of genre pretty quickly and was able to do some good analysis. So he gives background, and I should also say I just wanted them to use the format of a memo. So this is why both things will look like this. So you can see we're not going to go through all this, but they talk about the purpose, they talk about the participants and the stylistic features, and they're supposed to use examples. They had 3 examples of the genre they were analyzing that they had to incorporate evidence from to support their points. So he's doing that here. And then here are his reproductions. And so, I told him, like, don't center the text, and the format could use some work here, but I think he captures pretty well, the commercial aspects of digital blogs and the images and kind of and the voice of it. It's kind of a breezy, like we're having fun traveling voice. So that was his reproduction. And then his parody, he said, like, nobody really talks about the flyover states as exotic places to visit. They're usually off, in East Asian countries. So he used North Dakota, which oh, it's so funny. And my apologies if you're from North Dakota, but he has pictures of the radio tower. This fake, I don't know where he got this image, but crafted with patties. Those are cow patties. And some other things that, like the hot beef sandwich, which I have to say looks pretty tasty. So that's his parody. And here's his tiny reflection, which isn't super reflective, but yes. And then I'll just quickly, somebody else did greeting cards, and I'm just pointing this out because she did such a good job on the research aspect of it. And I had said, like, if it's interesting, provide some background on the genre, where it kind of comes from. And she really took that to heart, and I did not know all of the stuff about greeting cards. So I should also say, these are a pleasure to read, and I'm going to stop sharing now. I only want to write assignment sheets. I only want to read assignments that, what am I trying to say? I want to create assignments that I want to read, not that are horrible to get through or painful. And I do actually genuinely enjoy seeing how students are thinking about things and what they come up with and produce. And I also like the labor-based grading contract because I don't have to put a grade on it. I can just give them genuine feedback and critique, and I have meetings with them all, and I get them good ideas for revision, and we have good talks about the projects. So yeah, I like it. So I thought for the last bit of time here, and I've talked for longer than I wanted to. I thought we could talk about, oh, thank you. I'm sorry, I'm looking at the chat at the same time. I'm definitely going to read that. That's great. I thought that we could kind of talk in groups, if that sounds all right with you. Just kind of sharing what project you're planning to do for the next one, which I think is coming up pretty soon, and if there is any way to apply this to get it into a sequence. So I think we could do like a maybe 10-minute brief discussion, and I can unfortunately I have the prompt on PowerPoint, which I just realized that you're not going to be able to see. So I will quickly show it to you, and then I will put it in the chat. Yeah, so let me put that in here. Yeah, there we go. So I think everybody would be able to see that in breakout rooms. All right, so I'm going to put you in breakout rooms for like 10 minutes. I'll send everybody a message when we have 2 minutes left to wrap up, and then we can come back and discuss, and if you have questions or comments or want to share, we can do that. So, all right, I will put you, okay, there we go. Okay, so what sorts of ideas came out, or does anyone have anything interesting that they're doing for the next assignment that they want to share?
If I can share briefly, Jill always refers to a good professional development opportunity as one where you get a goodie bag, where you get something you can use right away. And actually, I appreciate it. I don't think, as you're right, for 100, I don't think the parody sequence is going to quite work for me. But I started with, my students are currently finishing the rhetorical self essay, which they're already writing these wonderful reflections about how they're doing the self-directed analysis, but then thinking about how to, the world-facing stuff and different venues in which they make rhetorical choices, which is exactly what we want, right? But I was going to have the second piece be a genre analysis essay, and I just love that you gave me permission to have it be a genre analysis memo. Because there's a way of thinking in which, if we're talking about creating all kinds of artifacts and building tools, there's something disingenuous about having 2 essays in a row. So I really love this idea of moving from the essay. So, and I'm handing that assignment out next week. It's going to be a memo.
And bonus, they also learn how to write a memo, which
exactly
is helpful.
Exactly right. Meta. They'll learn how to write a memo, but they'll also, I can expose to them my thought process behind why I chose a memo as a genre more appropriate for this, and I can perform that. And then they can carry that in the next assignment when they do the genre flip. Like I will have already modeled that. How do you choose, a more appropriate genre? So I got my goodie bag for today. Thank you, Jodie.
Yay. Okay, good. I'm glad. And extra bonus, memos are so much easier to read. I hate reading essays. I've taught too much tech writing, I think. So I want things chunked. I want to know the point right away. So yeah. All right. Any other thoughts here? I'm sort of just curious, what are people doing for the next project?
I'm doing something similar that's a genre analysis of a cover letter, and a cover letter, I think imitation is
Oh,
what it really is.
nice, nice. And I have talked to you before, Julia. All right, so anybody else? I'm tempted to start because I love, this is what I love about Zoom. All your names are right here. So I always do the teacher thing. I'm like, oh, I see.
All right, I'll cave to the teacher pressure.
Thank you.
Just hilarious because I was just on a Zoom meeting with a student yesterday who was like, I feel the silence. I have to. I was like, let me explain what's happening. And here I am. I'll tell her that I also fell for it. So I'm doing the rhetorical self, but I'm doing it as a quick discussion post that they're doing this week. And my first assignment is a 2-page short essay where they have a list of the 5 sort of, there's Clark, PCC, WSU, PSU, I think are the ones that I chose. And they're just sort of surface analyzing for the first part, just to identify what are some strategies and how do I see these connecting to the different appeals. And that's 2 pages. And then they'll turn that starting the week after. That's actually what they don't know is their rough draft. And then they're going to turn that into because I'm still learning to work away from the formal essay, a 4 to 5 page, they're going to strip that down to focus on 1, maybe 2 schools and do a deep rhetorical analysis of these college websites. For me, it's a process of getting them to see how they are influenced by rhetoric. Yeah. They are all talking about, I want to go to this school. Why do you want to go to that school? Yeah. What is it that sort of informed your choice? What is it that influenced you? So getting them to sort of step outside of themselves and see how these media, these forms, these texts are influencing them and their decision making.
I love it. And then I might say, okay, now you make a website or something that looks like a website for a college that you would want to attend, like that appeals to you.
Yeah. I have a feeling that I'm about to rewrite something in the middle of the quarter. So, that's just.
Sorry about that. Or maybe for next time. Oh, fun though.
I'll go because I'm brand new and I come from a semester system. I have a lot of experience teaching 8-week classes, but with the integrated reading writing now that 101 has become, and trying to get it done in 10 weeks, and using Liz's amazing shell. I don't know if she's still here. No, she had to go, so she'll see this in the recording. Thank you, Liz. But I wanted to make sure that the assignments were my own, and I'm pulling from things that I used because, again, I literally got the course like a week before it started or something, Jill. So their first piece that they just did the rough draft on is, do you have faith in yourself as a writer? That was the prompt. And this is a diagnostic that I'd used in the classroom, and the answers are fascinating and heartbreaking all at the same time. A lot of the times what we do to our students in the K through 12 system, especially middle school and high school, is abhorrent. That it really breaks their love of reading, which then breaks their love of writing, which Alexis and I were talking about in our breakout. But I asked them to give me, explain the context, how do they learn to read? How do they learn to write? Thinking in terms of those memories, etc. And then I had them talk about, or write about, it is an essay, write about, if they could do this in any kind of genre, what kind of genre would it be? And this is something Alexis and I were talking about too, for a lot of us, our definition of genre before your book and before this sort of training is really romance, comedy, mystery. And so some of them were trotting that out, and that's okay because they don't know yet. My grand plan then was that the second, and I'm calling them compositions, I'm not calling them essays. So the second composition would be to analyze either the genre they think they would like to do, or if they want to do an essay, the genre that scares them. And then the third one, because, you know, why not look at what scares them, and maybe they'll find out that they aren't scared of it. The third one then was going to be creating in that genre or another one, because it is a process and the process is messy and they can change their mind at any time. And then of course the reflective piece. But with what you showed us with the, you know, analyze and then sort of the mirror and then the parody, I'm thinking that what I might do is sort of combine the second and third and give them more time with more sort of process and discrete pieces, right? So they can do a shorter analysis and a shorter, but you, and then like kind of bring it all. The beauty of it is I'm doing it as I go, and I've told them point blank, you're getting a week at a time. That's all I'm going to give you. So I could give them the paper a week at a time for Pete's sake, right? You know,
Right.
like they may not know that if I feel they can do it, I'll throw in the parody. If I feel like they can't, I don't have to.
Yeah, exactly.
So, I mean, that's like the nice thing about winging it and it developing nonstop. So that's kind of, but when you were saying earlier about how everything links together, I think that's really important. And I've always kind of had a theme in my classes, and I think that really helps them also build it, scaffolds for them, right? And I think that that's really important. So
Yeah.
that was my thinking. If I'm totally off base, tell me now,
No,
please. Thank you.
no, no, it sounds great. And I am very interested in that question. Like, I'm not sure what faith I have in myself as a writer. So I want to going to be thinking more about how I would write that essay. But yeah, I like it. I love Broken. Yes, every literacy narrative has some version of it. I loved Harry Potter, but then I went to school. Oh, okay. Yeah. So we're coming up on time here, and thank you for, you know, bearing with me for this long. Are there any questions I can answer either about the book or, you know, any other aspect, anything I can be useful with? Like I want to add to this goodie bag if I can. I'm going to take a sip of tea.
In our group, we were asking about how long that sequence would typically take for you, the genre, all 3 or 4 of those pieces.
It took about a month. So and I can share I'll send it to Jill. I can share the schedule, and it has Google Doc links and stuff, so you can actually see the work that the students were doing. I'll try to make sure it's FERPA compliant. Yeah, so you can, I mean, I had them doing each piece. They did like a piece per week, and then they put it all together. So it was pretty compact, I think. The imitative essay and stylistic analysis is longer. It's probably a 5 or almost 6 week assignment, just because they're, you know, it's bigger and a little bit scarier. So
Lindsay talked about, this is her idea, using some kind of the email as a sort of early or diagnostic or place to start and talk in terms of talking about genre. I so love for every meta reason, right? The email.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. Teach students to write good emails by all means. All right. Well, I put it on the PowerPoint, but we didn't get to the end. But I'm going to put my email here. I have samples. I think I probably sent them all to Jill, but I have samples of 100 level assignment sequences, you know, including the research assignment and syllabi and all that kind of stuff. So if you want anything like that, you can just send me an email, and I will send Jill the student sample and the schedule for the unit 1, and I'll include the Google Doc link, so you can look at it if you want. And feel free, I have stolen from everybody, as I've said, so feel free to steal from me. I don't need attribution, and I don't care. So, all right, and I am stealing Brogan's crowdfunder thing, so I get a goodie bag too. All right. Well, thank you all. It was a pleasure to talk with you, and good luck with this semester. May it not get any weirder. I'm sure that it will. I'm sure in about 3 weeks or so, maybe there will be a coup. Who knows? But good luck out there.